On the 28th day of February in the year 2026, massive pillars of fire erupted, tearing through the skies high above Tehran. The haunting, relentless wail of air raid sirens began to scream across American military installations in Bahrain and Qatar, their dreadful chorus spreading to major metropolitan areas all across the Middle East. An anxious quiet descended upon the globe as millions watched, holding their collective breath, while devastating waves of air attacks were traded back and forth between the military forces of the United States, Israel, and Iran. Is what we are witnessing just another unfortunate chapter of regional conflict, or could this be the ominous fulfillment of ancient prophecies, the very signs that seers and visionaries warned us about generations ago? The familiar voices of prophecy seem to have faded as many of the modern seers we once listened to have passed on. Even the famed Bulgarian mystic Baba Vanga left behind chilling predictions concerning a third global conflict that she claimed would inevitably erupt one day. And let's not forget the cryptic quatrains of Nostradamus, which countless interpreters believe point directly to a great, devastating war, lasting 7 brutal months, a war they say is set to begin in this very year. But the warnings are not confined to the words of long-dead prophets. Amid the chaos unfolding on the ground, a powerful sign is compelling us to lift our gaze upward toward the heavens themselves. For on the night of March 3, 2026, the cosmos will put on a rare and spectacular display, a total lunar eclipse, an event that paints the moon in a deep crimson hue, earning it the ominous name of a blood moon. For millennia, ancient civilizations never dismissed such celestial occurrences as mere cosmic coincidences. From the prophetic scrolls of the Holy Bible to the deeply layered mystical codes safeguarded within Jewish tradition, the blood moon has consistently been interpreted as a direct communication, a profound message sent from the Most High to all of humanity, especially during the most critical and decisive moments in our shared history. A great number of scholars who have dedicated their lives to studying these ancient traditions hold a firm belief that when the moon takes on that deep blood-red color, and it happens to coincide with one of Israel's significant holy feast days, it signifies something far more profound than a simple alignment of celestial bodies. They see it as a divine signal of impending division, a period of intense purification, and the imminent arrival of a great spiritual awakening for humankind. Tonight we are going to set aside the noise of worldly politics and partisan squabbles. Instead, we will embark on a deeper exploration, delving into 7 specific ancient prophecies that are intricately connected to the phenomenon of the blood moon. These are 7 powerful signs that a growing number of people are convinced are actively manifesting in our world right now, developing right under our noses. Are we about to walk into a new era defined by calamity and divine judgment, or could this celestial event be an unexpected sign of mercy, a chance for a profound global renewal designed to stop the heartbreaking moral and spiritual decay we see spreading across the planet? So I invite you to quiet the racing thoughts in your mind. Allow your heart to find its center and come with us on a journey back through the corridors of time. Together we will seek the answers to the profound mysteries that lie in wait for all of us, hidden in the shadows of the March 3rd blood moon. Let us begin with the prophecy of Nostradamus regarding the final Great War. As thick plumes of black smoke once again choke the skies over Tehran, and as the world's financial markets teeter on the brink of collapse, while military forces worldwide shift to their highest state of alert, it's no surprise that countless people are desperately turning back to the wisdom of ancient prophecies, searching for clarity in a world consumed by chaos. The shocking events that transpired on February 28, 2026, represent a monumental and perhaps irreversible shift in the delicate balance of power throughout the entire Middle East. In a coordinated move, the United States, standing shoulder to shoulder with its ally Israel, initiated a massive military campaign directly against the nation of Iran. This drastic action came after many years of escalating tensions, primarily centered on Tehran's controversial nuclear ambitions and its rapidly advancing missile technology. The military action, which former President Donald Trump dramatically christened Operation Epic Fury, was presented to the world as a necessary measure, one intended to neutralize what the administration in Washington officially labeled an urgent and credible threat to American national security and the safety of its key allies. In the region, Iran's retaliation was swift and ferocious. Almost immediately, they unleashed relentless waves of missile strikes and swarms of unmanned aerial drones targeting American military bases, strategic Israeli positions, and numerous other critical locations all across the Gulf. The conflict rapidly spilled over borders, engulfing multiple nations in the Middle East and inflicting devastating damage not only on military targets but also on essential civilian infrastructure and vital transportation arteries. Suddenly, all eyes were fixed on the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that serves as one of the planet's most critical arteries for energy transport, through which a massive portion of the world's oil supply must pass. Global oil markets reacted with extreme volatility, sending shockwaves through the world economy. Simultaneously, long-standing regional alliances began to fray and fracture, entering a dramatic and unpredictable period of realignment. The already precarious balance of power in that volatile region, built on foundations of sand and oil, was irrevocably shattered, plunging it into a profound and uncertain new era of transformation. It is precisely within this climate of fear and uncertainty that a great many people found themselves drawn back to the cryptic verses of Michel de Nostradamus, a brilliant physician, scholar, and astrologer from the 16th century, who would become known to history simply as Nostradamus. Arguably one of the most influential and enigmatic figures in the entire history of Western prophetic tradition. Over the centuries, Nostradamus' name has become synonymous with a number of shockingly accurate predictions, including foretelling the meteoric rise of Napoleon Bonaparte, the terrifying emergence of Adolf Hitler, the catastrophic Great Fire of London in 1666, and even many of the major global conflicts and upheavals that defined the turbulent 20th century. Now, it is true that the interpretations of his poetic and often obscure writings remain a subject of intense academic and public debate. Yet his profound influence within Western culture is undeniable and has endured for centuries. Therefore, as our modern world teeters on the brink of chaos, as political alliances crumble, and as the night skies over the Middle East are lit up by the fires of war, it is perfectly understandable why the general public would once again be compelled to dust off those ancient books and pore over his prophetic four-line poems known as quatrains. In his masterwork Prophecies, which was first published in the year 1555, Nostradamus composed hundreds of quatrains that were incredibly rich with metaphor and symbolism, poems that seemed to allude to significant future events, particularly those destined to unfold in southern Europe and the Middle East. If we look specifically at quatrain 877, we find Nostradamus writing in profoundly haunting language. He penned the words, "The third climate included, under Aries. The year 1671 completes. By fire from the sky the great city shall be struck, the body by death and famine all at once." For centuries, scholars and interpreters have been locked in an intense debate over the true meaning of the number 1671. The prevailing theory among many is that this is not meant to be taken as a literal historical date. Instead, they argue it is a cryptic marker, a coded key embedded in the text, a puzzle left for a future generation to solve when the time is right. However, regardless of the precise way that particular number is interpreted, the essential message remains profoundly unsettling. The vision of fire cascading from the heavens suggests something that transcends a mere literal depiction of aerial warfare. In the view of numerous scholars and interpreters, this imagery serves as a powerful symbol for the catastrophic collapse of the world's most formidable centers of global authority. Is it truly conceivable that this great city represents a modern-day framework of power, standing right now on the very brink of a monumental transformation in the year 2026? The warning found in quatrain 241 emerges with an even more terrifying clarity. A great star is destined to burn for a period of 7 days. The clouds will create the illusion of two suns appearing in the sky. The massive mastiff will unleash its howl throughout the night when the great pontiff relocates to a new land. When examining the deeply symbolic language employed by Nostradamus, the mastiff is frequently understood to be a metaphor for a major military power, one driven by an incredibly fierce and unyielding determination. Those 7 days of burning, which some academics believe could represent a more extended period of 7 months of intense turmoil, point toward a specific and defined time frame of chaos, a period during which the very destinies of multiple nations will be violently overturned and fundamentally realigned. There are numerous researchers who draw a direct and chilling connection between these ancient visions and the terrifying weaponry of the modern age, including long-range missile systems and hyper-precise aerial strike platforms. The vivid descriptions of a sky set ablaze penned centuries ago in these cryptic manuscripts now echo with an astonishing and deeply disturbing relevance to the military realities of the 21st century. Nostradamus also spoke of a year of open gates, prophesying a distinct period where geopolitical borders and treaties that have stood for generations would enter a profound phase of re-evaluation and redefinition. According to the analysis of a great many contemporary scholars who study these works, these gates are symbolic of major historical inflection points, those critical moments in time when the old established structures of power finally crumble and give way to entirely new world orders. As we observe the year 2026, an era already defined by the radical reshuffling of international alliances and seismic shifts in the global balance of strength, countless observers are noting a parallel that is impossible to ignore. Within the cryptic verses of his quatrains, Nostradamus outlines a colossal confrontation between the world's major powers, a time when the West and the East become locked in a deep and seemingly irreconcilable cycle of opposition. He employs powerful imagery such as the Great War of Sovereigns and cities of sand shaken by thunder, placing them directly within the context of the modern Middle East, with its critical energy hubs and vital maritime choke points. These layered metaphors combine to create an incredibly symbolic and potent picture of our times. Significantly, Nostradamus was speaking of something far greater than just armed conflict. He detailed a complete transformation in the very fabric of humanity itself. He vividly described the definitive end of an old, decaying order and the dramatic emergence of a brand new era that would rise from the ashes of the flames. Many researchers propose that in his sweeping vision, this global war acts as the primary catalyst for a total planetary transformation. The global economic systems we rely on, the political institutions that govern us, and the long-standing alliances that have defined the world for nearly a century are all thrust into a period of extreme trial, ultimately leading to the rise of a new structural reality. Within the supercharged tense atmosphere of the year 2026, as the skies over the Middle East burn, with the light of missile strikes and air defense systems work tirelessly, the verses from the 16th century resonate with a unique and powerful frequency. They stand as a stark and sobering reminder that the great wheel of history continues to move in vast repeating cycles. These periods of transition and upheaval are frequently the harbingers of the most profound and lasting shifts in civilization. The gates that Nostradamus spoke of might very well symbolize the passageway from one historical epoch into the next. If the current global conflict truly represents one of these gates, then many are left to wonder what kind of world lies on the other side. Perhaps a completely new energy order, a fundamentally recalibrated global financial structure, or a radically renewed understanding of what security and alliance truly mean in this new age. From the unique vantage point of scholars who have dedicated their lives to studying Nostradamus, they believe he foresaw a great period of purification, a time in which the world's most unstable and corrupt structures would finally collapse to make way for more enduring and solid foundations. As the political cards are being dealt anew, and nations across the globe are forced to reconsider their ultimate positions on the world stage, this ancient prophecy provides a symbolic lens for deep and critical reflection. It extends an urgent invitation for us to contemplate our collective responsibility, the choices we make, and the ultimate direction of humanity at what could be its most decisive crossroads. Under the crimson war-torn skies of the year 2026, the prophetic quatrains of Nostradamus echo across time as an undeniable call to sober reflection. Every great crisis, no matter how dire, holds within it the seed of renewal, and every great upheaval unlocks the potential for a profound and lasting transformation in the grand course of human history. And yet, if the verses penned by Nostradamus are indeed symbolic fragments of a future that demand meticulous decoding across the centuries, then, when we examine this from an entirely different angle, the prophecies delivered by the blind Bulgarian mystic, known as Baba Vanga, seem far more blunt, direct, and shockingly visceral in their tone. As the shadow of our present-day conflicts shifts from being a distant, abstract speculation into a tangible and frightening reality, her stark warnings about a monumental milestone known simply as the year 2026, a moment, she claimed, would see humanity standing on the very threshold of a devastating global war, suddenly feel more immediate and profoundly unsettling than ever before. Let us now turn to the specific prophecy from Baba Vanga that directly concerns the year 2026. While Nostradamus bequeathed to us manuscripts filled with verses laden with complex metaphor, the woman known as Baba Vanga, the blind seer from Bulgaria, who was born Vangelia Pandeva Gushterova, made her mark on history through direct spoken pronouncements, which were carefully preserved by her closest followers, her dedicated students, and even high-ranking government officials who secretly sought out her otherworldly counsel. Born in 1911 and passing from this world in 1996, Baba Vanga became a legendary figure throughout Eastern Europe, famously known as the Prophetess of the Balkans. Over the course of decades, she welcomed literally thousands of visitors, a vast spectrum of humanity that ranged from simple farmers and merchants to the most powerful and influential political figures of her day. Those who believe in her prophetic abilities often recount with conviction that she accurately foresaw the world-changing events of September 11th, 2001 in the United States. Consider the uncanny accuracy of prophecies pointing to the tragic loss of the Kursk submarine back in the year 2000, or the foretelling of the surge in global extremist ideologies that have defined our recent history. And while academic circles in the West often dismiss these prophetic claims with a skeptical wave of the hand, the impact and reverence for Baba Vanga's words throughout Eastern Europe are undeniable. A deeply rooted conviction that has weathered the test of time. According to the oral traditions and testimonies from those who knew her, she never laid out a predictable step-by-step roadmap for a third world war, as we might imagine it, with battle lines and traditional armies clashing on a field. Her vision was far more profound. She spoke of critical junctures, knots in history as she called them, which are pivotal moments where humanity unknowingly passes through a gateway, crossing an unseen boundary into a new and irreversible reality. And the year 2026, as recounted by those who were in her inner circle, was consistently highlighted as one such monumental milestone, a year destined to witness one of the most dramatic and fundamental realignments of global dominance seen in many generations. At the heart of her prophecies was the crumbling and complete disintegration of long-standing alliances, the very bedrock of international stability that had defined the world for decades. From her perspective, the coming conflict wasn't merely about the collision of armies, weapons, and national egos. Instead, she saw it as a necessary, albeit painful, process of global cleansing, a purification that would burn away the old to make way for the new. She taught that when you see the great world powers trapped in relentless cycles of escalating conflict, and when you witness foundational strategic pacts start to shake and crumble, it is a clear signal that you are seeing the final curtain call for an entire epoch. The interpretations of her prophecies concerning a third global war describe a conflict utterly unlike the devastating world wars of the 20th century. Her foresight pointed to the flashpoints, igniting in volatile regions of the world, specifically where the competing ambitions of the superpowers dangerously overlap, areas we recognize all too well today, like the powder kegs of the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Once that first spark is lit, she predicted the entire map of global influence would be thrown into a tumultuous period of complete and total redefinition, where old lines are erased and new ones are drawn. The long dominant military pacts of the West would see their strength and unity decay, creating a power vacuum that would be filled by ascendant forces from the East, who would then seize a central commanding role in a freshly forged global hierarchy. Perhaps one of the most chilling and relevant aspects of her predictions for our time is the recurring theme of invisible weapons, a concept that was almost science fiction when she spoke it, but is now our daily reality. A vast number of analysts today believe she was describing the scourge of cyber warfare, devastating digital assaults aimed at the very nervous system of modern society. Our critical digital infrastructure, the electrical grids that power our cities, the global financial markets, and the intricate communications networks that connect us all. In this new form of combat, an entire nation could be brought to its knees, utterly paralyzed and thrown into chaos without a single bomb being dropped or a shot being fired. An alternative and equally terrifying interpretation suggests she was referring to engineered biological agents, unseen weapons that travel silently on the wind, crossing borders effortlessly and triggering health crises of a magnitude that could destabilize the entire planet. So what is it that makes her prophecy about the year 2026 so profoundly unsettling? It is the intricate concept of a monumental power shift. She is reported to have foreseen that the ruling powers of the age would lose their grip not from an external enemy, but because the very systems and creations they built would turn back upon them, like a monster consuming its creator. A growing chorus of interpreters now believes that the geopolitical fires we see burning today, particularly the escalating confrontations in the Middle East, are not the main event, but rather the initial sparks, destined to ignite a much larger conflagration, not a conventional world war, but a domino-like cascading failure of the interdependent financial, military, and political structures upon which our world has depended for so long. Furthermore, within widely shared translations of her visions, a powerful and evocative piece of symbolism emerges: the prophecy that a great dragon would rise to seize control precisely as the mighty eagle begins to falter and lose its strength. In the lexicon of modern geopolitical symbolism, there is little argument or debate. The majestic and powerful image of the eagle has long been the unmistakable emblem of the United States and the broader power of the Western world. Today, that very eagle representing Washington and its network of Western allies finds itself under immense strain, not from a shortage of military hardware, but from deep growing fractures within its own system of alliances, and from the crushing weight of the global order it itself created and is now struggling to maintain. This Western power structure is desperately trying to enforce a rules-based international order that is being openly defied and challenged at every turn by the emergence of a formidable new center of global influence. And this is where the dragon enters the picture, a powerful symbol for the rise of Middle Eastern influence, deeply interwoven with the economic might of East Asian nations, which is expertly exploiting the turbulence and internal divisions, times of the West, to rewrite the fundamental economic rules of our world. You don't have to look far for evidence. Just turn your attention to the military hotspots flaring up across the globe right now. It is absolutely no accident, no mere coincidence that tensions in the Middle East are boiling over at the precise historical moment when Western influence in that critical region is at its most fragile and precarious point in decades. Make no mistake, what we are witnessing are not minor squabbles over lines on a map or simple territorial disagreements. These conflicts represent a high-stakes battle for absolute control over the financial and energy lifelines, the very arteries and veins that pump life into the entire global economic system. When viewed through this lens, the prophecy about the eagle's decline clearly signifies something far more profound than just a series of military defeats or strategic withdrawals. It points to a slow creeping decay from within, an internal erosion of the foundational principles and guiding values of the West, as they begin to buckle under the immense pressure of changing global power dynamics and rampant internal division. In stark contrast, the ascent of the dragon, the embodiment of Eastern power, is not just about building bigger armies or achieving higher economic growth figures. It represents a fundamental shift in the very center of historical gravity for the entire planet. This prophecy marks the exact moment when the world's axis physically tilts toward the east, a point in time where ancient civilizational values and a different concept of collective order rise up to completely reshape the international stage. Among circles dedicated to the study of prophecy, the year 2026 is consistently spoken of as a year of great purification, a time of cleansing. Piecing together fragments from her final prophecies suggests a coming global economic cataclysm, a crisis where traditional forms of money lose their value and the centralized financial institutions we depend on are forced into a period of profound and painful restructuring. In the wake of this collapse, humanity would be forced to turn away from materialism and return to the things that truly matter. Foundational values, securing sources of food and energy, rediscovering faith and rebuilding strong local communities. Certain researchers have also drawn a compelling connection between her words and cosmic events, signs in the heavens. Although she never pinpointed an exact date, it is believed that specific celestial phenomena should be interpreted as divine warnings, serving as humbling reminders that the universe and the natural world operate on a set of immutable laws that are far grander and more powerful than the petty ambitions of mankind. It is critically important to remember that Baba Vanga's ultimate vision does not conclude with apocalyptic scenes of endless war and total devastation. She consistently spoke of a cleansing fire. Following this period of immense upheaval and trial, she foresaw humanity stepping across the threshold into a completely new chapter of its existence. In this new era, technological innovation would not cease. In fact, it would continue to accelerate. However, the driving force behind it would fundamentally shift, moving away from pure materialism and refocusing on the pursuit of spiritual growth and deeper human values. It was foretold that humanity would find its way back to the Most High, rediscovering a profound connection to fundamental morality and a renewed sense of personal responsibility. In the context of the year 2026, as the entire globe is rocked by powerful and transformative movements within the military, financial, and political arenas, these ancient prophecies are being revisited with a startling and heightened intensity. For those who place their faith in these visions, her words are far more than a simple warning. They function as a clarion call to a great awakening. Within every single crisis there lies the incredible potential to completely redefine the destiny of the human race. It is absolutely critical to understand that for visionaries like Baba Vanga, war was never intended to be the final chapter in our story. Instead, it was a necessary and grueling ordeal, a dark night of the soul through which mankind would be forced to look inward and reflect upon its own nature. She instilled a deep conviction that after all the turmoil and chaos had passed, the enduring values of genuine compassion and elevated spiritual awareness would survive to become the unshakable foundation amidst the wreckage. In this light, the year 2026 does not signify an end, but rather a portal. It is a narrow gate, a crucible through which our collective human arrogance must be shed, allowing passage only for those who are truly prepared for a spiritual awakening. But if the prophecies handed down by those who came before us are truly signs preserved from a time long past, then on this very night, the sky itself is delivering the ultimate and final confirmation. As we all stand together on the very edge of the year 2026, a celestial event that cannot be denied is unfolding above our heads, as if the universe itself has meticulously chosen this precise moment to tear back the veil of mystery. This is the night of March 3rd, 2026. This is the night the heavens are transformed. We are beyond the point of prediction. We are past all speculation. In this exact moment, we are witnessing the emergence of a moon stained a deep and ominous crimson. This is the great sign that was meticulously recorded in ancient texts, identified as a pivotal turning point in the grand saga of humanity. Is the blood moon of March 3rd, 2026 a spiritual warning sent from a higher power, or is it merely a spectacular yet random celestial event? When the term blood moon is spoken, for many, it immediately triggers the recollection of ancient legends that have persisted for thousands of years within humanity's collective memory. From the east to the west, from the sacred traditions of ancient India, all the way to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, the sight of the moon turning a deep shade of crimson has never ever been dismissed as an ordinary mundane occurrence. In Hindu mythology, any lunar eclipse, and especially a blood moon, is intricately connected with the demonic entity known as Rahu. As the legend goes, Rahu deviously stole the sacred elixir of immortality from the gods. The sun and the moon, however, observed this cosmic theft and promptly exposed his actions to the powerful god Vishnu. With divine speed, Vishnu unleashed his celestial discus, the Sudarshana chakra, and severed Rahu's head from his body. And yet, because Rahu had already managed to taste the elixir of eternal life, his disembodied head did not perish but was transformed into a dark celestial force that exists for all eternity in the heavens. From that moment forward, Rahu's immortal head has been locked in a relentless chase of the sun and the moon, seeking an endless revenge. It is said that when Rahu finally catches and swallows the moon, its brilliant light is choked off, causing it to glow red like a wound in the night sky. For the ancient people of India, this event was never considered a simple astronomical phenomenon. It was a sacred and powerful moment of widespread purification. During a lunar eclipse, it was common for people to immerse themselves in holy rivers, to pray fervently, and to perform sacred rituals designed to cleanse the spiritual impurity believed to be spread by Rahu's influence. Meanwhile, in North America, the Hoopa people, a Native American tribe from Northern California, preserved a story that carried a distinctly more human and relatable tone. They held the belief that the moon had 20 wives and a number of pets, which included formidable predatory animals like mountain lions and bears. If the moon ever failed in his duty to provide them with food, these very animals would turn on him viciously, attacking him, wounding him, and causing him to bleed, which in turn created the deep red color of the blood moon. When the moon's color began to shift, the Hoopa people did not give in to panic or fear. Instead, they gathered together to sing and perform healing rituals, holding a firm belief that their communal unity and unwavering devotion would restore the moon's health and strength. For them, the blood moon served as a call for community care and connection, not as an omen of destruction. By sharp contrast, the Inca Empire of South America perceived the very same phenomenon with a profound and existential dread. They believed that a ferocious jaguar, a creature of immense power, lived in the sky and would periodically attack and attempt to devour the moon. When the crimson color bled across the lunar surface, it was taken as a terrifying signal that the moon had been severely wounded. The Inca lived in mortal fear that once the celestial jaguar finished consuming the moon, it would then descend to Earth to prey upon all of humanity. Consequently, during the nights of a blood moon, the entire empire would spring into desperate action. They would thrust their spears toward the sky, beat massive drums in a frantic rhythm, shout at the top of their lungs, and create an overwhelming amount of noise. They would even provoke their dogs to howl and bark, convinced that this cacophony of chaos would frighten the great jaguar into releasing its celestial victim. These stories, though diverse, reveal one single enduring truth from our most ancient times. Across all cultures, humanity has consistently viewed the blood moon as an event that carries a vital message. Whether it symbolized Rahu's cosmic vengeance, the moon's painful wound in the Hupa tradition, or the jaguar's savage attack in Inca legend, each and every narrative is built upon a shared foundational belief. When the sky itself dramatically changes color, human history is standing at a threshold of immense significance, and that very threshold is upon us tonight. On this evening of March 3, 2026, the entire world seems to hold its collective breath, gazing upward, watching a total lunar eclipse, a complete and perfect blood moon. For our modern astronomers, this spectacular event can be boiled down to a straightforward equation of physics. It is simply the effect of sunlight refracting and bending through the Earth's atmosphere as the moon passes directly into our planet's shadow. And yet, when we momentarily set aside the cold, hard lens of physics and instead look up through the eyes of those who believe in the guidance of the Most High, this becomes something far greater than just a beautiful natural display. It is transformed into a message divinely written across the vastness of the sky, a living sign placed directly before our generation. To truly comprehend its deeper meaning, we must accept that we cannot rely on modern observation alone. We are compelled to journey back to the most ancient and sacred texts, where the phenomenon of a blood moon was never interpreted as a simple astronomical curiosity, but was understood as a profound and divine call for humanity to awaken from its slumber. The true theological basis for understanding these celestial signs is not found by looking through the lens of a telescope. It begins and is rooted deeply within the holy pages of Scripture. To be absolutely clear, we can never fully comprehend the significance of a blood moon if we rely only on telescopes, scientific instruments, or complex physical equations. For those individuals who place their faith in the divine guidance of the Most High, the sky represents something far more profound than mere physical space. It is a living, breathing book. In the ancient book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 31, a powerful prophecy resonates like a clap of thunder down through the centuries. The sun will be transformed into darkness, and the moon will turn the color of blood just before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. This is not some random, meaningless celestial event. It is a deliberate and purposeful sign of warning, a clear signal dispatched to all of humanity right before immense spiritual transformations begin to unfold across the earth. That very same level of intensity emerges once again at the culmination of history, as described in Revelation chapter 6, verse 12, which details the exact moment the Lamb of God unseals the sixth seal. The scripture reads, "And I watched as he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a massive earthquake, and the sun turned as black as sackcloth made of hair, and the entire moon became like blood." In this apocalyptic vision, the blood moon is not an isolated phenomenon. It is deeply and directly connected to the literal shaking of the world's foundations. It marks a moment when entire kingdoms, powerful rulers, and the established systems of authority, the very structures that humanity so pridefully clings to, are suddenly revealed as minuscule and fragile before the ultimate and supreme judgment of God Almighty. The origin and purpose of these celestial signs were established at the very dawn of creation itself. In the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 14, the scripture declares, "And God said, Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, and also for days and for years." In the original biblical Hebrew, the word translated as signs carries a weight and meaning that extends far beyond simply measuring the passage of time. It refers to a sacred signal, a divine message that was intricately woven by the Creator into the very fabric of the cosmos to designate the most pivotal moments within his grand plan of redemption for mankind. Consequently, the blood moon scheduled to appear on the night of March 3rd, 2026, is not some improvised or accidental spectacle of nature. It is a divine summons. When the sky above us transitions to a deep crimson hue, it signifies much more than the scientific principle of light refraction. It is a powerful and stark reminder that we are now living at the very center of a season in which spiritual awakening is no longer an optional path, but has become an urgent imperative that is written directly into the unfolding course of human history. But why has this particular event in the year 2026 been elevated to such a place of critical significance within the larger flow of human history? What is it that is causing millions of people, ranging from highly educated theological scholars to everyday believers all around the world, to focus their attention on this specific night with such an extraordinary level of heightened awareness? To adequately answer that pressing question, we must revisit a theological framework that has profoundly stirred the global faith community throughout the entire 21st century. This is the theory of the blood moon tetrads, which emerged from the incredibly detailed studies conducted by Pastor Mark Biltz and was later propelled into the global conversation through the influential book by Pastor John Hagee titled Four Blood Moons. This groundbreaking theory fundamentally reshaped the way that countless people perceive and understand the heavens. They no longer gaze upon the moon and see a desolate, lifeless sphere of rock. Instead, they now recognize it as the divine timepiece of the Most High God. The argument they present possesses a remarkable mathematical and historical intensity. It posits that whenever 4 consecutive total lunar eclipses, which are known as a tetrad, happen to fall, precisely on the sacred feast days of Israel, such as the feasts of Passover and Tabernacles, human history has very often been witness to a dramatic geopolitical turning point or a truly decisive shift in the ultimate destiny of the Jewish people and the nation of Israel. For secular astronomers, these events are simply recurring, predictable mechanical cycles that can be easily explained by the laws of gravity and orbital mechanics. And yet, for those who diligently study the apocalyptic texts of the Bible, this pattern represents a powerful convergence, a sacred moment in time when the human calendar and the divine plan of heaven begin to speak the very same language. When these celestial patterns and the sacred calendars intersect, heaven and earth become perfectly aligned in their meaning. While astronomers describe a natural cycle that simply repeats across the centuries, those who embrace a prophetic perspective can see that this very same cycle is operating within a much higher order as part of a divine design that was set into motion an eternity ago. While it is true that the celestial event on the night of March 3rd, 2026 does not technically fall within a complete tetrad in the narrowest sense of the term, its appearance is taking place within a broader sequence of prophetic signs that many believers are convinced are escalating in their overall significance. A growing number of theologians and prophecy watchers are now suggesting that a full tetrad is not an absolute requirement to signal a major global shift. What is truly needed is a single powerful link in the prophetic chain, a sign that is strong enough to shatter the deceptive silence of years that have only seemed calm on the surface. This is no longer the moment of 2014 or 2015. We have entered the era of 2026. As the military tensions throughout the Middle East continue to escalate toward a critical breaking point, the sight of the moon turning a deep crimson at this precise historical hour feels like a solemn and deliberate reminder from above. Heaven is watching, and the great clock of human history is advancing with an unmistakable and undeniable urgency. Yet, concealed behind all the forecasts of global upheaval and chaos, another more personal call is echoing, a call that is directed specifically toward the soul of each and every individual. If secular scholars perceive history solely through the lens of astronomical cycles, those of us who walk in prophetic conviction perceive a precious window of divine grace that is steadily opening for all. Moving beyond mere theories of celestial patterns and alignments, the year 2026 has firmly established itself as the central focal point of a wide-ranging prophetic movement within the entire global faith community, especially from spiritually sensitive voices within the charismatic and Pentecostal movements. Out of this movement, 5 central themes have been clearly articulated not with the intention to stir up fear, but rather to provide divine guidance to help humanity navigate through this intense moment of global shaking. These are the crucial warnings that are being proclaimed in unison by the spiritual watchmen who have been appointed for this specific generation. The critical message that surrounds the year 2026 has powerfully emerged from the convergence of some of the most respected and influential prophetic voices within the entire modern charismatic movement. Around the globe, a new generation of pastors and influential spiritual leaders are proclaiming powerful prophetic visions about the end of the age to countless millions of believers. Their urgent messages are being magnified and spread like wildfire through massive international conferences, are ceaseless, 24/7 prayer movements, influential digital media, empires, and vast interconnected prophetic networks. At the heart of this unfolding spiritual landscape, you'll find dedicated communities like the International House of Prayer, located in Kansas City. This community, widely recognized as IHOPKC, is built upon the foundation of relentless, unending prayer and the spiritual discipline required to prepare for monumental shifts in the currents of world history. You also have powerful prophetic networks, a prime example being the Elijah List, which diligently collects and distributes visionary messages from a wide array of respected spiritual leaders across the nation and the world. Then there are prominent figures such as Jonathan Cahn, who has dedicated his life to interpreting the unmistakable signs of our times. He does this by viewing them through the profound lens of biblical history, masterfully connecting the dots between modern-day events and the ancient patterns that first emerged in the Old Testament scriptures. From these varied and powerful streams of revelation, 5 foundational themes have steadily emerged, taking hold and now actively shaping the spiritual consciousness of the global faith community as it gazes toward the ominous blood moon. Scheduled for the night of March 3rd, 2026, the very first theme revolves around a great shaking and a divine separation, an event many simply call the shaking. According to this deeply held prophetic interpretation, the year 2026 will usher in a season of intense purification for all the man-made systems that humanity has built for its own security and comfort. The towering structures of global finance, the massive entrenched religious institutions, and the long-established models of power are all set to enter a period of profound testing and trial. In a deeper theological sense, this separation acts like a divine refiner's sieve. It is designed to powerfully expose the critical difference between a faith that is merely rooted in outward appearances and hollow traditions, and a faith that is a vibrant, living, personal relationship with the Creator himself. The second major theme powerfully underscores a season of widespread revival and extraordinary mercy. A multitude of prophetic voices who are laser-focused on revival are convinced that when the sky glows with a crimson hue, it is a divine signal for an unprecedented spiritual harvest. They directly link this celestial event to the biblical imagery of the latter rain. This metaphor symbolizes a final mighty outpouring of the Holy Spirit just before human history transitions into its next critical phase. From this perspective, the blood moon signifies something far greater than just a cosmic warning of impending trouble. Instead, it serves as a global invitation to come home, a precious moment in time when personal faith can be profoundly renewed, and entire communities are stirred to their core, moving toward deep and lasting transformation. The third theme is squarely centered on divine judgment and a period of intense spiritual reckoning. Leaders who operate within this prophetic stream speak of a time when the veil between the natural and the spiritual will be torn away. They firmly believe that the hidden realities, both within the private lives of individuals and deep within the larger faith community, are about to be brought into the open light for all to see. This great unveiling, however, carries with it a deeply healing purpose, because it is only after the unvarnished truth is fully acknowledged that true restoration and healing can finally begin. Within their specific theological framework, this divine judgment operates in perfect harmony with redemption, working to re-establish a righteous and holy order on the earth. The fourth emerging theme is often described as a desperate cry for a Laodicean church, a direct echo of the stark imagery found in the book of Revelation. Countless pastors are sounding the alarm about the dangers of spiritual complacency, a perilous condition where faith appears active on the surface but lacks any true inward passion and depth. The night of the blood moon is therefore seen as a powerful celestial wake-up call, a divine alarm clock urging believers everywhere to step far beyond their familiar comfort zones and return to a life of fervent prayer and absolute, wholehearted surrender to God. The fifth and final theme puts a heavy focus on a time-sensitive, divinely appointed window of grace. Leaders who carry a powerful evangelistic fire see the year 2026 as an absolutely pivotal moment in history, a time when human hearts will become unusually open and receptive to matters of eternal significance. They speak of it as a favorable time, a kairos moment, when the opportunity to return to God becomes more clear, more accessible, and more urgent than ever before. From this viewpoint, every single day that draws us closer to March 3, 2026 is saturated with the weight and urgency of eternity. This reality is prompting individuals everywhere to radically reorder their priorities, to rethink what truly matters, and to re-establish the very foundation of their lives upon solid rock. These 5 powerful themes, however, reach far beyond the scope of a single astronomical event. They are actively molding and shaping the spiritual awareness of millions upon millions of believers. For this massive global community, the blood moon is much more than just a beautiful or eerie occurrence in the night sky. It stands as a significant spiritual marker, a signpost reminding all of humanity that both collective history and our individual destinies are converging at an incredibly significant and prophetic point in time. The one common thread that weaves through every single interpretation, whether it sounds stern and full of warning or is brimming with hope, is not found in a frantic attempt to predict exact dates and timelines. The true destination of this message rests deep within the heart of every single individual. The blood moon is not meant to spread panic or to instill fear, but rather to lead every person into a moment of sober reflection about the state of their own lives. From a purely theological perspective, every sign that appears in the heavens is ultimately designed to point toward one central, undeniable reality: the relationship between humanity and the Creator. Therefore, the celestial event of March 3, 2026, when it is viewed through a spiritual lens, transcends being a simple matter of orbital mechanics and physics. It becomes a profound and timely reminder that history is not random, but is advancing according to a divine design far greater than anything our human minds can fully grasp. And within that grand design, each person on this planet stands not as a passive, distant spectator, but as someone personally invited into a direct, life-altering encounter with Jesus Christ, whom believers all over the world recognize as the absolute center of all prophecy and all redemption. The moon itself may only glow crimson for a few brief hours on that fateful night, and yet the eternal question it raises can echo within the chambers of the human heart for much, much longer. Where do we truly stand in our personal relationship with our Creator as the signs in the heavens continue to unfold right before our very eyes? The fourth prophecy, a chilling warning drawn from the ancient Book of Enoch, speaks of the return of the Watchers. As we venture deeper into these ancient texts, many of which were once dismissed or forgotten, we inevitably encounter the mysterious Book of Enoch. Even though it is not included within the accepted biblical canon, the Book of Enoch serves as a critical key that unlocks a shadowed and controversial chapter of ancient human history. Model. Ancient lore speaks of a profound and catastrophic intervention, a time when beings known as the Watchers defiantly crossed the sacred boundary, separating heaven and earth, delivering forbidden knowledge that ultimately sent the pre-flood world spiraling into profound corruption. In the apocryphal Book of Enoch, these Watchers are meticulously identified as angelic beings who consciously abandoned their designated celestial positions and proceeded to instruct humanity in the destructive arts of warfare and processed weapon-making. Their teachings extended into enchantments, the manipulation of nature's laws, and the pursuit of knowledge that blatantly exceeded the limits established within creation. Enoch's solemn warning about a world being molded by powerful external influences is not a relic of the distant past. It echoes with chilling relevance in our time. This very realization is prompting many modern researchers of biblical prophecy to ask a courageous and deeply sobering question for our generation. Is it conceivable that the blood moon anticipated for the year 2026 could signify a pivotal moment when these invisible manipulative influences, first detailed in ancient scriptures, are once again thrust into the undeniable light of truth? Within the chronicles of the Book of Enoch and certain esoteric strains of early Jewish tradition, a consistent narrative emerges. The Watchers are depicted as entities who transgress their divinely entrusted boundaries, prematurely delivering powerful forms of knowledge to a human race that was spiritually unprepared to handle it. When you examine this story across a wide spectrum of theological perspectives, a single unifying theme remains strikingly consistent. Knowledge, when it is divorced from a solid moral foundation and stripped of the Creator's guiding wisdom, inevitably becomes a double-edged sword capable of immense destruction. When we view this ancient narrative through the lens of our contemporary world, the Watchers no longer need to be interpreted as mere mythological figures from a forgotten age. Their pervasive influence can be understood as a powerful symbol for the unseen forces that are actively shaping today's global society. As a prime example, let us consider the domain of technology. The field of artificial intelligence is advancing at a truly unprecedented and exponential pace. These sophisticated AI systems are now capable of writing complex texts, speaking with human-like cadence, generating stunningly realistic images, and even simulating the full range of human emotion with uncanny accuracy. Lurking just beneath this visible progress are sophisticated technologies of behavioral manipulation, all powered by the relentless and massive collection of our personal data. These systems are engineered to predict the habits, preferences, and intimate personal decisions of literally billions of people. The algorithms driving social media platforms curate our streams of information with such surgical precision that individuals gradually begin to experience reality through an invisible, customized filter. This modern phenomenon directly mirrors the ancient narrative of dangerous knowledge being delivered to those who are not yet ready for its consequences. In those earlier legends, humanity was given profound insights that it utterly lacked the spiritual and moral maturity to properly steward. In our world today, humanity wields the astonishing power to edit the very building blocks of life through gene technology. We can now generate hyper-realistic digital fabrications so convincing they are capable of fundamentally altering public perception, and we continue to develop autonomous technologies that are poised to reshape the entire global labor structure. The central critical issue has never been the knowledge itself, but rather the guiding hand behind its development and the ultimate purpose that it is intended to serve. And this inevitably leads to a pervasive moral distortion. Across a multitude of societies around the world, the value systems that were once revered as foundational pillars of civilization are being rapidly and systematically redefined. The degree of one's social media visibility has now become a primary measure of personal worth. Popularity that is constructed upon the flimsy metrics of views and likes now frequently serves as a substitute for genuine character and intellectual depth. We see the rise of digital idols meticulously constructed through curated imagery and strategic branding, who now influence our collective standards of success, beauty, and what it means to be an authority. This trend is a modern parallel to the age-old human tendency to construct new objects of devotion and worship. In biblical history, when the nation of Israel fashioned the golden calf, the ensuing crisis was about far more than just a piece of molten metal. That act symbolized the tragic exchange of a living, breathing relationship with God for a static, lifeless symbol shaped by their own human hands. In this present era, that same kind of devotion may now unfold through the glowing screens of our devices, rather than in stone temples, in a world where our attention itself functions as the most valuable currency. When we begin to see our world from this particular perspective, a new understanding emerges. The blood moon of 2026 may very well represent a profound moment of spiritual and cultural exposure. The ultimate purpose here is not to simplistically link a single celestial event to a singular historical incident, but rather to compel us to ask a much deeper and more significant question. What are the unseen influences that are actively shaping the human mind and the human heart in this day and age? When the moon above us turns a deep, foreboding crimson, many throughout history have viewed it as a powerful symbol of unfailing. The light we see is being reflected through the shadow of the earth, producing a highly unusual hue, which serves as a potent reminder to all observers that hidden realities can and will eventually be revealed. Therefore, the central focus of our attention should not rest on a futile search for mystical beings in the night sky. The far deeper and more urgent concern involves clearly recognizing and identifying the powerful forces that are shaping our culture, our technology, and our moral frameworks in this pivotal era. If the Watchers of antiquity once symbolized the danger of knowledge without spiritual alignment and power without divine direction, then the question for the year 2026 becomes incredibly pressing. Is humanity currently exercising its rapidly growing power with humility and reverence before the Creator? Or is it operating with the supreme confidence that it can redefine every God-given boundary on its own authority? The celestial event of the blood moon may only last for a few hours, yet that brief moment in time can serve as a powerful mirror, prompting each and every person to honestly ask themselves, in this rapidly and relentlessly changing world, what are the things that most profoundly influence my thoughts, my choices, and the foundation of my faith? And this reflection continues even further. In the realm of ancient theology, the symbolism of the blood moon was never confined to the mere mechanics of a lunar orbit. It has always represented a moment of exposure. When the sky dramatically shifts to a shade of red, it signifies that the veil which conceals the truth is being torn wide open. The complex systems of power and influence that secretly guide global events suddenly become far more visible, subject to a new and heightened level of scrutiny. The year 2026 thus invites all of humanity to discern whether it is truly living in an age of enlightened progress, or is instead existing within a carefully constructed landscape, shaped by influences that echo the sapping, most destructive patterns of antiquity. The blood moon provides a necessary pause, a moment to critically examine the invisible threads that weave the fabric of our society. And above all, it presents an invitation toward achieving genuine spiritual freedom. It is a call for restoring the human heart to its right and proper relationship with the Creator before the next great and momentous turning point of history finally unfolds. If the stark warnings passed down to us from Enoch compel us to view the modern world with a heightened awareness of these hidden and manipulative influences, then at this exact crossroads of history, another more powerful message is also rising to the surface. It is a message shaped not by the chilling grip of fear, but by the radiant promise of hope for all hearts that are earnestly searching for truth. As the heavens above blaze with a deep crimson hue on the night of March 3rd, 2026, you must ask yourself a profound question. Is it possible that the universe is communicating a message far greater than simple destruction? Perhaps this is the very moment to raise our eyes to the sky, not with the defeated posture of the condemned, but with the eager anticipation of those who know a new dawn is about to break. This is the fifth prophecy, a monumental sign in the heavens, declaring that our redemption is drawing incredibly close. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, verses 25 through 28, Jesus Christ spoke plainly to his disciples, describing the signs of the final days. He said there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars. And here on the earth the nations will be in utter distress, confused and perplexed by the roaring of the sea and the churning of the waves. He continued, and when these things begin to happen, then you are to look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. This specific passage stands as one of the most crucial prophetic declarations in all of Scripture, as it fundamentally reframes how believers must interpret the great and powerful upheavals seen in the cosmos. Notice that Jesus never instructed his followers to cower in fear or to scramble for hiding places in a state of panic. Instead, he commanded them to stand up straight. He commanded them to lift their heads high. This specific posture is saturated with profound spiritual significance. When these celestial signs manifest, they are not a death sentence for those who are his. On the contrary, they serve as a divine announcement that the grand plan of redemption is accelerating towards its magnificent fulfillment. If you examine the patterns throughout biblical history, heavenly signs have always and consistently appeared at the major turning points in the story of redemption. It was a brilliant star over Bethlehem that acted as a celestial guide, leading the Magi directly to the young child Jesus. It was an unnatural darkness that blanketed the entire land during the hour of the crucifixion, marking the very moment of a sacrifice that unleashed a redemptive power meant for the entire world. And as we read in the book of Revelation, incredible celestial phenomena are the precursors to the final establishment of the righteous and eternal reign of God. For this very reason, when we are confronted with the blood moon on March 3rd, 2026, the most important question we can ask has nothing to do with geopolitics or astronomy. The truly deeper question is this: through which set of eyes, through which spiritual lens, are we choosing to interpret this powerful event? From a purely secular, worldly perspective, a blood moon can only evoke feelings of instability and dread. It speaks of looming economic crises, of escalating military conflicts, and of the inevitable collapse of all the systems we once thought were permanent. The mainstream media narratives, will undoubtedly speak of unprecedented market volatility, of international tensions boiling over into open conflict, and of a future that is completely shrouded in uncertainty. To them, a red sky is nothing more than a symbol of an impending threat. However, from a truly spiritual perspective, the blood moon carries an entirely different and far more hopeful meaning. It is akin to a flare in the night sky, signaling the imminent approach of a brand new day. It is always when the night has reached its absolute darkest and most oppressive point that the glorious light of dawn is closest to breaking through. In Christian theology, the shaking of this world never leads to pointless chaos. Instead, it is a divine preparation, clearing the way for the establishment of a new, more just, and more righteous global order. So why was Jesus so specific when he said, "Stand upright and lift up your heads," because in ancient Hebrew culture, to lift one's head was a powerful and public sign of confidence, of vindication, and of unshakable hope. Those who were condemned and guilty would lower their heads in deep shame, but the redeemed, the justified, would proudly lift their heads high in overwhelming joy. When Jesus gave his disciples the command to look up, he was affirming for all time that these heavenly signs are meant to point toward the final deliverance of the faithful. There is a field of study some theologians call biblical astronomy. Within this framework of understanding, the heavens are not a stage for cosmic horror stories to play out. Instead, they function as God's massive proclamation board, a celestial canvas upon which he declares his divine purposes to all of humanity. From the very first chapters of Genesis, the sun, moon, and stars were explicitly established by God to serve as signs. Therefore, when their predictable, familiar rhythms suddenly shift and change, they are serving as a powerful reminder to all mankind that history is not random, but is moving according to a divine and unstoppable design. And so the blood moon of the year 2026, appearing against the backdrop of a world already filled with unprecedented turbulence, carries two distinct and parallel dimensions of meaning. The first dimension reflects the violent shaking and crumbling of all existing man-made systems, but the second, more glorious dimension reflects the nearness of a promised redemption that has been awaited for millennia. The world may only be capable of perceiving the end of an age, but the eyes of faith clearly perceive the glorious beginning of a new reality. For anyone who feels lost, confused, and disoriented amidst the escalating upheavals of 2026, the timeless words of Jesus Christ provide a bedrock of stability. This blood moon does not signal a final, chaotic ending. Instead, it functions as a critical signpost along the long and winding road of human history, reminding us that this journey is absolutely moving toward its divinely appointed destination. When the sky overhead burns a deep and ominous crimson, believers are being invited by God himself to see something far more significant than a cause for alarm. The very same Creator who placed each star in its precise course is the one who continues to uphold the very fabric and order of the entire universe. And that same God also holds the ultimate destiny of every single human life in his hands. So if on that fateful night you look up and see the moon glowing red, remember, his explicit instructions: stand upright and lift up your head, because it is precisely in these moments, when the world feels like it is being shaken to its very foundations, that the promised redemption for his people draws nearer and is more real than ever before. If lifting our heads allows us to find our hope in the Creator, then lowering our gaze to carefully examine the hard reality on the ground reveals a picture of an entirely different and sobering intensity. That deep crimson moonlight will not be confined to the sky. It will do more than just wash over the clouds. It will cast its long and telling shadow upon the world's financial centers, upon the capitals of political power, and upon the great cities that have long been paraded as symbols of global might and prosperity. That eerie red hue will act like a divine lens, exposing the cracked and rotten structural framework of modern civilization itself. If the heavens are reminding us of our coming redemption, the earth appears to be entering a profound and long overdue season of reckoning. This is the very threshold of a concept that has been intensely discussed in apocalyptic theology for centuries: the prophesied and inevitable downfall of modern Babylon. We now examine the sixth great prophecy, a warning that echoes through the ages: the catastrophic fall of modern Babylon. More than 2,600 years ago, rising from the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, a colossal empire burst onto the world stage, destined for unparalleled greatness. It didn't just mark a new kingdom, it launched a magnificent and legendary era of civilization, one characterized by breathtaking splendor and architectural grandeur, ultimately becoming the very birthplace of one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. This was the global superpower that the celebrated Greek historian Herodotus described with profound awe, stating that it surpassed in sheer size and undeniable magnificence every other city on the face of the earth. We are speaking, of course, of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, a formidable dynasty that held dominion from the year 626 to 539 before the time of Christ. The visionary architect behind Neo-Babylon's meteoric rise to greatness was none other than King Nebuchadnezzar II, a truly extraordinary and commanding ruler from Mesopotamia. In his ambitious worldview, no enemy could ever stand unconquered, no personal ambition remained beyond his reach, and absolutely no territory lay outside the grasp of his powerful armies. The annals of history have immortalized Nebuchadnezzar II as the most illustrious and celebrated king of ancient Babylon. With his vision, he personally transformed the city of Babylon into an awe-inspiring marvel of ancient civilization. He was a master builder, commissioning the construction of magnificent temples and monumental structures that seemed to defy the heavens. Under his unyielding leadership, Neo-Babylon evolved into a truly formidable and globally renowned empire. Yet he was a complex figure, known not only as a brilliant warrior and a master military strategist, but also as a king celebrated for his romantic and profound devotion. It is said that to soothe the deep homesickness of his cherished wife, a queen from a land of mountains and greenery, Amytus Nebuchadnezzar II commissioned the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, thereby creating an iconic wonder of the world that would echo throughout the corridors of history forever. The immense wealth accumulated by Babylon was a direct and undeniable reflection of the king's absolute authority. The Holy Scriptures themselves referred to Babylon as the New Garden of Eden of Mesopotamia, a paradise on earth. Strategically positioned between the life-giving Euphrates and Tigris rivers, Babylon blossomed into a vibrant cultural center and became a true cradle of ancient civilization. The entire sprawling metropolis was completely encased and protected by not one but two separate massive and heavily fortified walls, making it seem utterly impregnable. Leveraging its strategic proximity to the mighty Euphrates River, Babylonian engineers masterfully redirected the water to carve out a vast and formidable moat that encircled the entire city. This engineering marvel created a powerful and intimidating defensive barrier that discouraged any potential invaders. Nebuchadnezzar initiated massive large-scale construction projects, transforming Babylon into the wealthiest and most powerful region in the entire Middle East, and cementing its status as the most significant commercial city of its time. The primary roads that crisscrossed the city center were meticulously paved with striking white and rose-colored stone, a testament to its opulence. Within the city's protective walls stood a colossal, towering structure, soaring to approximately 91 meters in height, with each side of its base measuring about 91.4 meters, and it was composed of 7 distinct levels. Each of these levels was lavishly adorned with glazed bricks of different vibrant colors. At the very summit of this ziggurat stood a sacred shrine, meticulously constructed with dazzling glazed tiles, resembling a temple that housed a massive solid golden idol. Many historians and theologians have compellingly associated this proud tower with the infamous Tower of Babel, a symbol of human arrogance described in the scriptures. The palaces built within the inner city were decorated with unimaginable luxury, most especially the Hanging Gardens, which rightly earned its place as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The legendary grandeur of Babylon was so enduring and so vivid that even a full 100 years after the historian Herodotus had visited, he still felt compelled to call it the most magnificent city still in existence. Nebuchadnezzar II elevated the power of his nation to its absolute zenith and personally led aggressive military campaigns across vast and distant territories. Every single nation that was unfortunate enough to be encountered by Babylon's relentless army fell one after another in bloody succession until no rival power remained to challenge them beneath the heavens. So utterly magnificent was its glory. And yet the question that history demands we answer is this: why did the seemingly invincible Babylonian Empire completely fade into history in the span of a single night? At the absolute peak of its power and its regional dominance, the elite and battle-hardened forces of Nebuchadnezzar II grew increasingly aggressive, arrogant, and consumed by a lust for war. Relying entirely on the overwhelming and immense strength of his nation, a strength he believed to be divinely ordained. Nebuchadnezzar launched one brutal military campaign after another, systematically conquering all of the surrounding territories. In his conquest, he utterly destroyed the kingdom of Judah, razed the sacred city of Jerusalem to the ground, and plundered, seized, and publicly desecrated the holy vessels and sacred temples of the Jewish people. The surviving inhabitants, the remnant of Judah, were rounded up and forcibly marched into captivity in Babylon. Because of their profound and irreconcilable differences in faith and customs, they were forced to endure relentless humiliation and systematic persecution. For the captured Jewish people, this dark and agonizing period of exile, this painful chapter became eternally known as the Babylonian captivity. On the surface, Babylon flourished in unmatched splendor and obscene wealth. But for the captives, for those Jews who remained defiantly steadfast in their faith and their unwavering worship of Jehovah, it was nothing less than a living hell, a place of constant spiritual temptation and relentless soul-crushing oppression. The scriptures vividly record that King Nebuchadnezzar erected a massive gleaming golden image and then commanded all officials of every single rank to attend its public dedication. A decree was issued to the entire empire. All who were present were ordered to bow down before the statue or face immediate and horrific execution. The faithful among the Jewish people, men of unwavering conviction, flatly refused to bow, remaining loyal only to their God, Jehovah. In a fit of tyrannical rage, Nebuchadnezzar commanded that they be thrown directly into a blazing white-hot furnace. Babylon stood not only as a place of immense physical suffering for the Jewish faithful, but it also served as the global epicenter of moral corruption and spiritual chaos. As the capital of the world's most powerful empire and the undisputed commercial hub of the Middle East, its spiritual decay and moral rot spread like a deadly virus, influencing and corrupting many nations and regions. In the book of Revelation, Babylon is prophetically described with a chilling title, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth, a place foretold to be the dwelling place of demons and a stronghold for every unclean spirit and all detestable and wicked influences. The prophecy declares that all nations have drunk the poisoned wine of her passionate immorality. The prophecy continues, stating that the kings of the earth have committed acts of spiritual adultery with her, and the international merchants of the earth have grown obscenely rich from the sheer abundance of her decadent and corrupting luxury. Even as they endured relentless persecution, the prophets of Israel steadfastly proclaimed a message of righteousness and unwavering faith, a truth the Babylonians utterly dismissed and scorned. In a state of profound anguish, one prophet cried out, lamenting, "We yearned to heal Babylon, but she refused to be healed." This sorrowful cry finds a powerful echo in the final judgment proclaimed in the book of Revelation. It is fallen. Babylon the Great has collapsed. She has been transformed into a habitation for demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hateful bird. An entire century of unparalleled glory vanished in a single moment in 538 B.C. The empire was under the rule of Belshazzar, the last king of Babylon, and the grandson of the mighty Nebuchadnezzar. On the final, fateful night of the empire's existence, even as the formidable Persian armies commanded by King Cyrus were closing in on the capital, Belshazzar remained arrogantly secure, placing his complete trust in Babylon's impenetrable walls. Instead of mobilizing his forces for the impending battle, he arrogantly called for nearly 1,000 of his nobles to gather at the palace for an extravagant and debaucherous feast, immersing himself in wild revelry. In a move of ultimate defiance, he even commanded that the sacred gold and silver vessels, which Nebuchadnezzar had plundered from the temple in Jerusalem, be brought out for his drunken guests to use for their toasts and celebrations. These holy artifacts had been consecrated exclusively for the worship of God, and their profane use in such a drunken spectacle was an egregious act of desecration against the Most High. In the very heart of the feast, as the nobility reveled in their intoxicated celebration, a disembodied hand mysteriously materialized and began to write a chilling prophetic message on the palace wall, a divine warning that spelled out the immediate downfall of Babylon. Yet even then, Belshazzar remained steeped in his pride, completely failing to comprehend the gravity of the celestial warning. Utterly blinded by his own arrogance and supreme overconfidence, the entire royal court continued their hedonistic celebration, completely oblivious to the dramatic events that were unfolding just beyond the city's massive walls. In the meantime, the brilliant strategist Cyrus had discovered a critical vulnerability. A section of the Euphrates River that flowed directly into Babylon had become unusually shallow. Shielded by the darkness of night, he expertly guided his army down into the nearly dry riverbed, completely bypassing the defensive moat, and marched quietly into the heart of the city. Astonishingly, he discovered that the city's inner gates had been left unlocked and unguarded, allowing his forces to march in without a single moment of resistance. With almost no significant effort, the Persian army seized control of Babylon. And just like that, the long and storied history of the powerful Babylonian kingdom came to an abrupt and final end. The city that was once the jewel of the world gradually fell into a state of ruin, eventually becoming a complete and utter desolation. The scriptures record this judgment. Because of her deep-seated sins, she shall become an eternal wasteland. After successfully conquering Babylon, Cyrus chose to treat the Jewish people with remarkable honor and respect. He demonstrated profound respect for their faith, put an immediate end to their decades of oppression, and officially released them from their captivity. He not only permitted them to return to their ancestral homeland, but also restored their confiscated property and issued a royal decree authorizing the complete rebuilding of their sacred temple. The Persian Empire, which Cyrus founded, stood strong for more than 200 years. To this very day, many people in the nation of Iran reverently refer to Cyrus as the father of their nation. Babylon, a city that was once unequaled in its military strength and architectural splendor, came crashing down in a single dramatic day. This chapter of history offers a profoundly important lesson for all generations, on a superficial level. Its catastrophic collapse seemed to be the direct consequence of an unrighteous ruler's arrogance and complacency, as the city's leadership remained lost in celebration while enemy armies gathered at their gates. But looking at a much deeper spiritual level, the true causes were a pervasive moral decay, a deep-seated spiritual corruption, a blatant contempt for what is sacred, and the cruel oppression of the Jewish people. It was the consistent desecration of faith that ultimately laid the foundation for the city's complete and utter destruction. This applies to any nation, government organization, or even a wealthy individual. Immense power, status, and wealth provide no genuine or lasting security when they are accompanied by the persecution of those who hold a genuine faith. History continues to remember Cyrus with great honor long after the glory of Babylon has faded into dust and memory. When leaders demonstrate genuine respect toward true faith and treat believers with the dignity they deserve, they are building a legacy that will stand the test of time. This truth serves as a timeless lesson about the intersection of belief and conscience throughout all of human history. It doesn't matter what nation or culture we are talking about, and it has nothing to do with how wealthy or militarily strong it is. The act of oppressing sincere faith is a guaranteed path toward decline and ruin. In stark contrast, the powerful example of Cyrus the Great, a ruler who honored the faithful, continues to command a reputation of profound respect that echoes across the centuries. Now here we are today in the 21st century, and Babylon is no longer just an ancient city located on the banks of the Euphrates River. For many modern interpreters of prophecy, Babylon is now understood as a vast global system. It represents a tightly interwoven global financial network where economies are linked in a complex and often precarious dance. It is a technological framework that has insinuated itself into every single corner of our daily lives, and it promotes a culture that dangerously elevates power and profit as the ultimate gods to be worshipped. The Book of Revelation chillingly describes this modern Babylon as the mother of abominations, not merely because of its obvious moral corruption, but more critically, because it constructs an all-encompassing system that actively seduces humanity into a state of complete dependence upon it, replacing faith in God with faith in the system. When we turn to chapter 18 of Revelation, we witness a vivid scene of the world's merchants weeping bitterly as Babylon falls because their primary source of immense profit has vanished in a single shocking moment. This imagery reflects a profound modern reality. Whenever an economic system becomes the one and only foundation for our security, any shaking of that foundation will inevitably send devastating shockwaves across the entire globe. So why do so many people see the blood moon of the year 2026 as a potential warning bell for this modern Babylon? The first reason is humanity's overwhelming technological confidence. Mankind has now fully entered the era of artificial intelligence, holding a powerful, almost religious belief that data and complex algorithms can perfect every area of our existence, from modern medicine to complex military strategy. Enormous technology corporations now possess unimaginable volumes of information, tracking nearly every aspect of human behavior and thought. Our entire global financial system now operates through high-speed, nearly instantaneous electronic transactions that are disconnected from physical reality. Our global supply chains now connect every continent within a matter of days. However, this very interconnectedness, this source of our pride and efficiency, has also introduced a terrifying level of fragility into the system. Imagine a critical breakdown in our deeply interconnected digital infrastructure, or a sudden dramatic realignment of global power. Or perhaps even a single disastrous policy decision. Any of these can unleash an unstoppable chain reaction, a devastating domino effect across the globe. This is because the entire structure of our modern Babylon is built precariously on two fragile pillars: unwavering confidence and the powerful illusion of comprehensive control. In the language of apocalyptic symbolism, the eerie crimson glow of a blood moon serves as a powerful and stark reminder that the ultimate authority does not belong to any government or institution, but to the Creator alone. This brings us to the second pillar of this world system, the financial market. The constant upward climb of stock indices, the volatile world of digital currencies, and the colossal power of multinational investment funds all work together to project an image of endless, limitless growth and prosperity. In this system, the real-world value of massive assets is reduced to nothing more than electronic numbers flashing hypnotically across 1 million computer screens. But when that foundational pillar of confidence begins to tremble, those digital fortunes representing trillions of dollars can shift and even evaporate in a matter of mere hours. The Book of Revelation powerfully portrays the utter collapse of Babylon as taking place within a single hour. That ancient and chilling image perfectly mirrors the lightning speed of today's hyper-digital economy. And this leads us to the third pillar, the realm of political power and raw geopolitical ambition. Nations forge mighty alliances, painstakingly built upon shared economic priorities and mutual military interests. Yet the very moment those interests diverge, the entire global power structure convulses and realigns itself, often with violent consequences. Our modern Babylon, therefore, represents far more than just economic systems. It symbolizes the entire global political framework, a complex web in which life-altering decisions made by a select few in distant centers of authority dramatically impact the lives of billions of ordinary people. Throughout history, prophetic voices have consistently warned of a coming global shaking. It is crucial to understand that this shaking involves much more than just the outbreak of warfare or another catastrophic financial crisis. It truly signifies a divine process of dismantling and refining a time when all structures that lack a solid and righteous foundation will be thoroughly tested. So when a blood moon appears in the sky, amidst a backdrop of rising global tensions, it becomes a heavenly signpost for a season in which the long-hidden deep fractures within our civilization finally emerge for all to see. The collapse of modern Babylon will not happen in a single dramatic night. And yet the night of the blood moon is widely regarded by many watchers as a crucial marker of this profound transition. It becomes a moment that forces us into a deep and necessary reflection, asking whether our human security rests entirely on the shifting sands of wealth, social status, and man-made systems of power. And when those towering structures inevitably begin to tremble and fall, what of any real substance will remain? The Book of Revelation speaks not only of a great collapse, but also with equal certainty of the glorious arrival of a new order, the Holy City, the New Jerusalem, where true justice and lasting peace are finally established forever. In this way, the dramatic fall of Babylon is not the end of the story. It is the necessary event that prepares the way for an entirely different and unshakable foundation. When viewed through this specific lens, the unfolding events of the year 2026 serve as a solemn and powerful reminder that every kingdom built upon human pride and self-exaltation will eventually enter a divine cycle of judgment and refinement. The blood moon illuminates the night sky as a profound and inescapable symbol of exposure. The very systems of finance and governance that were once considered untouchable and permanent will officially enter a season of intense, revealing testing. On that particular night, modern Babylon will stand at a historic turning point, and all of humanity gathered beneath the haunting light of the deep crimson moon becomes a direct witness to the dawn of a brand new chapter of history. This will be a chapter in which the question of our spiritual foundation and the undeniable importance of eternal values grows clearer and more urgent than ever before in human history. And this leads to the seventh prophecy, the rise of the remnant. This seventh and final prophecy opens with a completely different kind of crescendo from everything we have just walked through together. If the 6 previous prophetic layers spoke of shaking, of exposure, of purification, and the eventual collapse of worldly systems, this final climactic layer speaks of divine formation. It marks not only the definitive end of an era, but also the momentous beginning of a new community, one that has been uniquely refined and strengthened through the crucible of intense testing. The concept of the remnant is not some novel idea in biblical theology. It is an ancient and recurring theme. In the Old Testament, for instance, the prophet Isaiah repeatedly spoke of a faithful remnant of Israel that would ultimately return and be preserved through the devastation of both exile and war. The prophet Micah likewise described a small yet fiercely faithful group whom God himself would personally safeguard right in the midst of overwhelming turmoil. After the long Babylonian exile, it was precisely this remnant that returned with a mission to rebuild the broken walls of Jerusalem and to restore the Holy Temple. This powerful theme then continues directly into the New Testament. The Apostle Paul masterfully continued to develop this concept in his foundational letter to the Romans. He powerfully emphasized that even amid the greatest of societal upheavals, there is always a group, a remnant, that remains absolutely steadfast and unwavering in their faith. Within today's charismatic movements and global prayer communities, this message resonates deeply. The idea of the remnant is now understood as a specific generation of believers who are being intentionally purified and prepared through the unique trials of our time. They are not being formed or defined by religious titles or by their position in institutional structures, but solely by a profound and authentic inward transformation of the heart. Modern prophetic visions often describe the year 2026 as a pivotal moment when a great spiritual division becomes clearer and more pronounced than at any time before. On one side of this divide stand the massive interlocking systems of the world, all built upon the foundations of power, control, and self-interest. On the other side stand those individuals who choose radical faithfulness to the truth, even when it comes at a tremendous personal cost. In this interpretation, the blood moon on the night of March 3rd is not merely an external sign of worldly shaking, but a catalyst for deep inward illumination. So as the financial markets of the world fluctuate violently, and as time-honored political alliances begin to shift and crumble, the remnant people will not be seeking their security in economic indicators or in clever geopolitical strategies. Instead, they will firmly establish their foundation upon the solid rock of a personal, vibrant relationship with their Creator. This powerfully recalls the iconic image of Daniel's 3 companions standing completely unharmed within the fiery furnace. For them, that roaring fire became the very place where their faith was undeniably proven, not where it was destroyed. These people will not follow the frantic movements of the crowd because they possess the divine wisdom to recognize the temporary, fleeting nature of the things the crowd so desperately pursues. When the media headlines intensify with terrifying news of war, of a deepening energy crisis, or of widespread currency instability, they will make a conscious choice to guard their inner peace. And that peace does not come from a denial of reality, but from an unshakable trust that all of human history remains completely under God's sovereign and perfect rule. These are not people who merely go through the motions of religion, for they have personally felt the profound emptiness of outward rituals that lack any genuine spiritual depth. Across countless communities, we are witnessing younger generations turning their backs on these hollow ceremonies, driven by a deep hunger for an authentic, life-altering encounter with the divine. You can see this longing reflected in the organic rise of round-the-clock prayer movements, the explosion of intimate Bible studies in living rooms, and simple worship gatherings that prioritize presence over performance. The remnant, as they are called, has absolutely no interest in building a religious reputation or gaining public approval. Their entire focus is on deep inward renewal and a life that actively puts truth into practice with every daily decision. What they truly represent is a revolution of the heart, because it's a fundamental truth that the most significant transformations in all of human history have always ignited from the transformed lives of individuals. Consider the story after the exile. Only a small, determined group made the arduous journey back, and yet against all odds, it was this faithful few who managed to rebuild an entire nation from the rubble. If you look throughout the annals of church history, you will discover that the most powerful revivals and spiritual awakenings were frequently sparked not by grand crusades but by a humble, unassuming prayer gathering. In this very same way, the blood moon is perceived as a divine refining furnace, a crucible of purification. You must understand that fire does more than simply consume. Its intense heat is what purifies precious metals, burning away all the dross. In this process, all the superficial layers of faith and the comfortable blankets of complacency are burned away, leaving behind a resilient, mature, and unshakable faith. So why does this serve as such a perfect and fitting culmination to our journey? The answer is simple yet profound, because following every major cycle of societal collapse and spiritual shaking, a brand new generation inevitably emerges profoundly shaped and fortified by the hard-won lessons of the past. The mighty ancient Babylon eventually crumbled, and it was a faithful remnant that returned to rebuild from its ashes. Every single season of intense shaking throughout the history of faith has served to prepare the ground for a powerful and lasting renewal. In the year 2026, when you look at our world through this specific prophetic lens, this moment signifies not only the dramatic exposure of the deep cracks fracturing our global systems, but also the simultaneous spiritual maturation of those individuals who are consciously choosing to live by a different, higher standard. This remnant is ultimately defined not by its size or its numbers, but by the strength of its character. They might be influential business leaders who resolutely choose integrity in a marketplace that is rife with pressure to cut corners. They could just as easily be dedicated public servants who tirelessly pursue true justice for the people rather than caving to politically convenient compromises. They are also very often families who make a deliberate choice to preserve and pass on faith-centered values, creating a sanctuary of belief within an ever-shifting and often hostile culture. These individuals collectively embody a new and higher standard of unwavering faithfulness and profound personal responsibility. Consequently, the night of the blood moon carries two distinct parallel meanings that unfold at the same time. One narrative speaks of the comprehensive shaking of man-made systems, of empires and institutions. The other, more personal narrative, speaks of the forging of a refined and purified community. As the sky above transforms into a deep, ominous crimson, the critical question before us expands far beyond observing global events. It becomes an intensely personal decision about whether to be swept away by the prevailing current of the times or to courageously step into the unique calling of the remnant. You must understand that you are not being asked to single-handedly change the entire world in one grand sweeping moment. All of history demonstrates that every truly great movement, every lasting change, begins with a quiet transformation within the individual human heart. When just one person decides to strip away all superficiality and cultivate a sincere, dedicated prayer life, and then commits to living consistently with the truth they know, that single individual immediately becomes an integral part of a much larger sweeping transformation. On that prophesied night, the moon will dramatically change its color for only a few fleeting hours. And yet, in the spiritual dimension, the impact of that moment can forge and shape an entire generation for the decades that are yet to come. This profound revolution will not be documented on the front pages of our newspapers or become a trending topic on social media. It quietly and powerfully unfolds deep within the human heart, in that sacred space where a person firmly decides that even as the world around them experiences unprecedented shaking, they will choose to live out a faith that is genuine, mature, and radiantly alive. Together we have embarked on a long and winding journey, tracing a path from the hauntingly cryptic verses of Nostradamus, who spoke of fire descending from the heavens, to the stark and direct warnings from Vanga about a major shift in global power beginning tonight. We've examined the blood moon as a monumental celestial sign and delved into the profound visions of the Watchers, as recorded in the ancient book of Enoch. We've journeyed through the ultimate promise of redemption found within the Gospel, witnessed the symbolic fall of a modern-day Babylon, and arrived finally at the prophesied rise of the generation known as the remnant. These 7 distinct yet interconnected pieces are not meant to be intellectual riddles designed to spark endless, fruitless debates about the precise date and time of the end. They are in fact urgent calls to action, clarion calls for each and every one of us to turn our gaze inward and examine the state of our own hearts. The year 2026, with all of its predicted upheavals and dramatic signs, does not arrive with the intention of destroying your hope. On the contrary, it arrives to refine and purify everything in your life that has grown old and stagnant, and to help you finally recognize what possesses true eternal value. After all that we have explored together, the most sincere and vital counsel I can offer you does not reside in abstract theories written on paper or debated in forums. It is found in the way you deliberately choose to live out each and every day, grounded in the small but significant actions you take starting right now. It all begins with a commitment to inward change. Begin this journey with intentional stillness. Please do not wait for the world to be shaken to its core before you begin to seek and cultivate inner peace. Every single day, commit to setting aside just 10 minutes to intentionally disconnect from the relentless streams of negative news and the endless noise of social media. Use that precious protected time to pray, to immerse yourself in pages of timeless truth, or to simply sit in complete silence and reconnect with your own soul. A truly strong foundation of faith is never built on information alone. It is constructed upon a bedrock of stillness, upon the discipline of learning to hear the quiet voice of the Creator amidst the deafening noise of the world. Live ethically. Choose truth when everyone else is wearing a mask. In a world that is completely saturated with deception, half-truths, and moral compromise, the simple act of choosing unwavering integrity becomes a profoundly powerful act of spiritual resistance. You can start with the smallest of decisions. Make it a habit to speak the truth even when it offers you no personal advantage or might even be inconvenient. Politely decline to participate in conversations that are built on gossip or tearing other people down. Uphold an uncompromising standard of integrity in your work. True morality doesn't live in abstract theories. It comes alive in what you choose to do when you are certain that absolutely no one is watching. Strive to become a source of strength for others. Become a steady, calming presence in a sea of anxiety. Do not become so intensely focused on the global tremors that you completely overlook the very real needs of the people standing right beside you. Be a genuine, tangible light within your immediate environment. This can be as simple as a phone call to check on a loved one who you know is feeling anxious, or offering a helping hand to a colleague at work who is clearly feeling overwhelmed by their burdens. In these trying times, the most profound gift you can offer a soul crying out for connection is the sanctuary of your undivided attention. True compassion isn't measured by wealth. It is demonstrated through the powerful, unwavering act of simply being present. When you make the choice to uplift those around you, you become an architect of a greater community founded on empathy, a sacred remnant of our shared humanity, standing firm against the chaotic tides of a world in transformation. This evening, as the blood-red moon claims its throne in the night sky, a sign for this generation, I implore you not to gaze upon it with a heart full of fear. Rather, see this celestial event as a divine marker, reminding us that we are all pilgrims on this sacred journey. The great awakening we seek will not be found in forecasting what is to come, but in embracing the present moment with courage and profound love. In the face of all that is unfolding consciously, choose grace. Live each day with an unshakable sense of purpose, and let a resilient, unconditional love be the compass that guides you through the aftershocks of history. Remember that the foundations of genuine love and the timeless values of truth and righteousness are all that truly endure. We are grateful to be walking this profound journey of awareness with you. Anchor yourself in your faith, for it is your shield and your strength. Embrace each moment with intention, and advance into the days to come with a calm and unwavering confidence, knowing you are prepared for what lies ahead.